Through millennia, at least from the time of the ancient Egyptians, we have represented ourselves visually in self-portraits, often portraying a role that we're taking on. But the self-portrait, as a vehicle to portray inner character, really took off as a real art form in the Renaissance, helped by the availability of a wider range of materials and infinitely enriched by the mastery of human expression of the great Renaissance artists. Masaccio included himself in a fresco in the Brancacci Chapel in Florence, peering between the other protagonists with a quizzical look. Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian and Leonardo all depicted themselves, giving us an insight into the people who lie behind the artists we know. But Rembrandt is seen as the preeminent master of the self-portrait, teaching many students over his life and inspiring future generations of artists. Of his 80 self-portraits during his lifetime, about 40 are oil paintings. His late masterpieces, painted in poverty, hone down the essence of being human, showing the depth of what lies below the skin. As he said, "Life etches itself onto our faces as we grow older, showing our violence, excesses, or kindnesses." Van Gogh was greatly influenced by Rembrandt. He said, "The portraits painted by Rembrandt are more than a view of nature, they are more like a revelation." He believed that this pointed the way to draw the public into art. "We must win the public over by means of the portrait. In my opinion, it is the thing of the future." Van Gogh painted some 35 self-portraits in his short life, partly because poverty often meant he could not afford to pay a model, but also as he tested, explored and revealed his own pain and complexity. People say, and I'm quite willing to believe it, that it's difficult to know oneself. But it's not easy to paint oneself either, he said. He described the look on one of his self-portraits as quite unkempt and sad, something like, say, the face of death. Frida Kahlo began her artistic work lying on her back in bed for many months, looking at a mirror on the ceiling. Already damaged by childhood polio, as a young woman she suffered catastrophic injuries in an accident, leading to a lifetime of disability and pain. Painting was her refuge. Frida painted 70 self-portraits, often using fantastical representations of herself. "I paint self-portraits because I am the person I know best. I paint my own reality." Cindy Sherman's self-portraits present her entering into a role, the self becoming other. "I think of becoming a different person. I look into a mirror next to the camera. It's trance-like. By staring into it, I try and become that character through the lens. When I see what I want, my intuition takes over, both in the acting and the editing. Seeing that other person that's up there, that's what I want. It's like magic." So, in the age of the selfie, when we all have the technology in our pocket to capture thousands of images of ourselves, to change the impression of where we are, to curate the image of ourselves and our lives, even to morph our image, our shape, our age, our face, who do we want to be? Some of us will have enjoyed playing a role on stage or even screen. Some will remember the joys and leaps of imagination as a child dressing up in a few scraps of cloth as a pirate, a princess, a cowboy, or a Jedi Knight. We now have new stages, the 3D digital worlds where we can move, meet others, act. Many offer just a limited range of characters to role-play in a game, but others offer wide possibilities of expression and an environment to meet and interact that is also created by the people themselves. The best known and largest is Second Life, with just under 1 million active users each month. Second Life and its OpenSim equivalents offer opportunities for not just interaction but for creation, including the creation of 3D selves. Perhaps not surprisingly, its opening sales pitch is, who do you want to be? Become your avatar, make a 3D version of yourself, or create an entirely new identity. It offers a rather strange selection of off-the-peg avatars, which most people quickly change as they learn how. But researchers have noticed how quickly people become very attached to the avatar that they create themselves. I am a visitor to Second Life and have made many friends. I've asked just a few of them to talk about how they've used these unusual opportunities and skills to create and inhabit an avatar and what it has meant to them and their inner self. When they mention RL, it's shorthand for what we call real life, or the incarnate world, as opposed to the digital world that these conversations took place in. Delane says, I carry my real self into my character by using some of my real features of appearance, recognizable for those who know me in RL life. I am creative and show this by making different looking avatars in every thinkable costume, using my own particles to enhance these. My romantic side is usually found in my elven and fairy outfits. My dreamer side is where I use a cyber or space outfit. Terra describes Terra as a flamboyant, excessive in many ways, very visible with frequent attributes such as fire, sun, gold, weapons, powerful animals, creatures, felines, dragons. Terra is neither a contemplative nor a static being. She is a warrior, rarely defeated and always reborn from her ashes, who takes her place and moves in space wherever she goes. She exists as soon as she arrives. And her name, Terra? What is more powerful on Earth than the Earth? Nothing. And as for the inner self, some people are inhabited by a personal mythology, and this is my case. I vibrate to what is strong, powerful and intense, to what is barbaric, pagan, in a modern and noble sense of these words. Proud, free, impossible to subdue, defender of the weak and of nature, rhythms and music to dance, to what is grandiose and majestic, and to what is very beautiful to me. Terra is all that, depending on the moment. She always keeps her sharp claws. Whether she's a queen dressed in gold or a shaman in rags performing a wild ritual, a white angel or a black angel or a young girl. Zola describes her journey and her changes in her appearance. When I first arrived, I had recently transitioned from male to female and was shy and naive in my new gender. This was reflected in my avatar, a sweet little elf. But a year of getting knocked about in SL resulted in the development of a new avatar. Antrazus was a bold, fierce, tall, outspoken succubus. She had no use for romance. She looked beautiful and dangerous at the same time. I realized that Second Life was a giant digital Jungian sand tray for adults, and that many of us manifested our archetypes in world. So I went for it. As my interior landscape morphed, so too did my avatar. She has been a dragon, a faun, a demon, a witch, a cyborg, and various anthropomorphic beast women. I used her to express my response to what was going on in the world. As the Gorgonzola, I have been exploring the gender politics of ancient mythologies and the monstrous manifestations of that in our present culture through a project called Monstering the Divine Feminine. Medora explains, Medora has evolved over time. I became conscious that she held inside those aspects of my inner self that I didn't feel free to express fully in my RL roles as a professional leader, a mother, an activist. I was more able to be truly myself in the virtual space. I was astonished when friends in SL recognized and named aspects of myself that hadn't been named in RL for many years. In a sense, this recognition kept those aspects of me alive and healthy during difficult periods. Sometimes Medora would don her armour to prepare me for a tough day ahead in RL. Medora fed and strengthened my self-belief and understanding. When I saw certain qualities she had, I realized I had them too in RL. These included courage, confidence in my creativity, connection to deeper spiritual issues and to the earth, Gaia. These images show some aspects of me expressed through Medora: thinking and feeling deeply, being visionary, bringing light and hope in darkness, and revelatory, opening hearts to the earth in all its pain. Alazi explains her journey. At first I was role-playing, but Alazi and I have become one more and more over time. The values are the same, honesty and trust. I am always me, immersed in SL, enjoying music, dancing, shows, and she helps me, back in RL, relieves my stress and helps me to face a degree of drudgery. I can be more passionate and expressive than in a professional role in complicated RL. Women's roles are often more circumscribed even now in RL. In World, the opportunities are wider. There is far less prejudgment and stigma. Alazi is a self-expression of my creativity and my love of performance, using this for a cause. Through her, I have made friends internationally with innovative people from all walks of life. Many things that get in the way of connection in RL aren't there in this space. It's interesting how we find and attract the same sort of people with the same values here. Rage explains rage is an evolution. At a certain point, I stopped suspending disbelief and seeing this environment as an objective reality. I recognize the digital world as entirely constructed. This actually reflects the reality in our lives as a whole, that we create the world we encounter, but it's clearer to see here, much greater than in RL. I grew up in a home where we didn't have a lot. It was natural to build for ourselves. When I came here, it was natural to build too. The self I build is more than an avatar. It is very much the environment I create around that avatar too. We enact the virtual world we enter, and it acts on us. The inner self is transformed as it builds externally. Within this space we encounter many people we would not in our RL bubbles. And it's quicker to get a fix on the people you meet. In a sense, the inner self oozes out of them, often within a few minutes, creating an affinity or a dislike. This liberation of the inner self can be very beautiful, but for some it can just amplify darkness. Some reclaim an identity they have lost through accident or injury. There is this constant interplay between the inner and outer self. With thanks to all the participants and the many inspirational people of the virtual world for their inventiveness, creativity, inspiration and friendship.